In this video, we're going to take on the massive task of simplifying heraldry, be it for use for your fantasy characters, for your training equipment, or just to have an awesome and accurate wall hanger. Because heraldry isn't just slap a logo on a shield and colour it in.
Argent, a griffin segment, laned, sable, armed argent above a chevron inverted sable. Or is it the other way around? Gotta be an easier way of doing this.
Let's strip heraldry to its absolute bare bones and build up from there to make this easier. And when I say heraldry, I don't mean family crests. There's no such thing as family crests. Historically speaking, we think the term comes from Fairbairn's Book of Family Crests of Great Britain and Ireland, released in 1859. So the term's been around for a little while and it's been widely used, but medievally speaking, a crest or a piece of heraldry was denoted to an individual person to identify them, not their family. So we're going to break it down into four things. Colours, which is called tintages, the background, which is known as the field, the bold shapes, which are known as ordinaries, and the main fancy image, which is known as the charge. So let's start with the colours, or the tintages. And just a quick note on how complex this can be if we're to explain it thoroughly, which we're not, we're just covering the basics. The colours themselves are broken up into three categories, two of which have a sub-category. So you've got the colours, and there are 5 to them, even though 4 of them are colours and 1 of them is a shade by our modern language. You've got the metals, which there's 3 in that category, and 1 only came about in the 20th century. And then you've got the furs, which are patterns in the background. Oh, and colours can also be represented by crosshatch patterns for back in the days when we were printing books in just black and white. So there's a whole nother level of categorization that we could add to all of this. I told you it gets complicated. So like I said, bare bones, let's simplify this. First off, let's drop the furs for this video and just cover colours and metals. So the main 5 colours in heraldry are gules, which is red, azure, which is blue, vert, which is green, purpure, purple, my French isn't that great, which is purple, and sable, which is black. And then for the 2 metals you've got or, which is gold or yellow, as well as argent, which is white, known as silver. There's also a third, which is blue celeste, which was brought in the 20th century. I mean, it's not really medieval, but it is heraldry. Now, for rules on tintature, it gets complicated because there's rules for rules with exceptions to rules. Simply put, avoid putting metals on metals or colours on colours. Unless you want to, then just go right ahead. I mean, it's just a picture. Rules are meant to be broken, right? Except for safety rules. They're allowed to be questioned, not broken. I think that's simple enough, especially given the documents that I read years ago trying to explain the same thing. Chunky. So, colours, or tintages, out of the way. Let's get on to the background, or the field, as it should be called. Now, your background can be just a plain tintature, be it a metal or a colour. It's completely up to you. And you can divide the field in a multitude of ways. So the simplest divisions of the field is parti per pale, which is a vertical division, or parti per fess, which is the horizontal division. There's also diagonal divisions of the field. So something like a forward slash is parti per bend sinister, whereas something like a backslash is parti per bend. The sinister will make sense shortly. That doesn't mean it's an evil shield, though it could be. Then you've got divisions of 4. This one's quarterly, this one's saltire. Then you've got divisions of 3, which, albeit less common, you've got tierced per pal reversed, and tierced per pale. Not that that's confusing to remember which one is which at all. And there's obviously more, but we're going to keep this moderately short and sweet. And the line itself doesn't even have to be straight. Let's take parti per fess, for example, and this involves a bit of detail. So let's zoom in a bit. You've got per fess embattled, per fess nebulae, per fess engrailed, per fess dovetailed, per fess invected, per fess wavy, and per fess matriculations! Okay, that last one's probably not real, but it could be. But wait, there's more, because you can duplicate that pattern. Take Pally of 6, Pally of 8, or Barry of 4, or Barry of 10, or Checkly, or Fussily, or Bendy of 6. There's a heap of these, but let's move on to the big bold symbology, known as the Ordinaries and the Subordinaries. And heraldic scholars are still in debate about where to draw the line between Ordinaries and Subordinaries, which are all just big bold patterns. For this video, we'll cover what will be the most common assumption of 10 Ordinaries, and we'll cover a few of the Subordinaries as well. So there's the Cross, Chief, Pale, Fess, Bend, Bend Sinister, in Escutcheon, Saltier, Chevron, and Bordure. Please excuse my pronunciation, I'm not French. Then there's also the Subordinaries, which are things like Pell, Quarter, Canton, Pile, Lozenge, and more. But again, this topic is so big, I'd need multiple videos to cover everything properly. And a lot of these can appear in parallel. For example, Argent, 2 pellets Ghouls, or Sable, 3 chevrons all, which is not a question. And you'll probably notice there's a pattern to my speech when I'm talking about heraldry or blazons as to what to say where. And there's a reason for that. And I can teach you that in another video if you're interested, but right now, we're going to get back to the basics. So let's get on to the good stuff. The charges. A charge is an object that's placed on top of the background and on top of any ordinaries, and is usually the main focus of a shield, the thing that people remember about it. You've got little things like mobile charges, which are billets or circles, other geometric shapes. They can be easily confused with the ordinaries, the subordinaries, and even the furs sometimes. So let's skip that for this video and get on to the fancier designs. Starting with one of the most frequently found charges in historical documents, which is the cross. So there's the Greek cross, the Maltese cross, the cross pomme, the cross flory, the cross crossette, the cross bouquet, with over 400 varieties, well arguably over 400 varieties of this design. There's a lot. And speaking of a lot, angels, demons and humans appear really frequently in historical designs, along with body parts like the hand, the heart or an armoured limb. And plants appear really frequently too, including trees, grains and flowers, with arguably the most famous of the lot being the fleur-de-lis, even though the rose probably appears more in historical documentation. And inanimate objects appear a lot too, like towers, keys or a rook, like in chess, as well as things like books, crowns and musical instruments. And celestial bodies like the sun, the moon or even clouds are really popular. But in my humble opinion, animals and mythical creatures take the cake for the best charge on a shield. Animals are usually thrown into a category that best suits their natural form, which is usually beasts, birds, sea creatures, or other. And animals have what's called attitude applied to them, which is specific to their pose and their category. For example, beasts like lions can be rampant, whereas birds like eagles can be displayed. Subnote and a bit of a tangent. The lion is the most frequently occurring beast, and the eagle most frequently occurring bird. Both are considered to be the rulers of their domains, respectively. And it's an ironic parallel to the warfare and political rivalry of major European powers that chose to use these blazons. But back to the beasts. A lot of the common ones were the wolf, the boar, the ox, the horse, and the dog. And for the birds, aside from the eagle being the most popular, we also find things like the swallow, crows and ravens, which were known as corvus, roosters, and even swans. And for sea creatures, we find fish of all types, a lot of scallop shells, dolphins, mermaids, half bull, half fish, half lion, half fish. And then obviously you've got your sea monsters, like your gigantic sea serpents. And land serpents or snakes are seen fairly commonly too, as well as salamanders and lizards. But usually, and far more frequently, we find things like dragons and wyverns, which, come on, they're dragons and wyverns. By the way, if you want a video covering any one of these specific topics, let me know in the comments below, because we're skipping over a lot of stuff really fast. But to get on to the most awesome part, we have to talk about. So, attitudes are basically poses that the creatures are in. So by default, things usually face dexter or left. So the charge is facing the enemy when you go into battle. Let me get an example. So my training shield is a great example. When I'm facing my opponent, so is the lion. This is dexter. Specifically when it's worn on the left arm. But some face sinister, or to the right, away from the enemy, and others face affronte, which means face on. Now, animal heads, though not technically an attitude, have their own terminology as well. Like Carbost, with the head cleanly separated from the neck and the head is facing forward. Whereas Cooped is cleanly separated the neck with the head facing Dexter. While Erased has ragged edges around the neck, like feathers or fur to show that it's been torn off. By far the most known attitude for beasts is rampant, which in Old French means rearing up, and you can have rampant gardant or rampant regardant depending on which way the head is facing. And you can also have courant, which means at speed or at full, salient, which means leaping, passant, meaning striding, segent, meaning sitting, stanton, meaning standing, and couchant, meaning lying down. Now for birds, they're usually affronte, meaning facing forward, with their head facing Dexter. And wings can be displayed or endorsed and raised, though that's usually reserved for Dexter or sinister birds. For sea creatures, Niant is swimming, Horient is jumping, like it's swimming vertical or jumping out of the water, and for sea serpents you have glissant, which basically is a wavy line horizontal for the creature. And then, to jump back to beasts for a second, we have my absolute favourite, which is reserved only for griffins. And that's Segrant, which is a combination of a beast's rampant with a bird's wings endorsed and raised. Mwah, beautiful. It is an awesome combination. And you can highlight certain details of attitude. Would you stop that? Like the poses of the tail with coward, tail forche, tail saltier, or other features, using terms like langed, armed, attired, ungooled, or pizzled, which sounds like a line out of a Snoop track. But I think we've rambled on enough for one video, and we really didn't even get to cover blazons, helms,
crests, horses, coronets, mantlings, mottos, supporters, hatchments, marshalling, cadency, augmentations, canting arms, national styles, roll of arms, modern heraldry, heraldic authorities, motor styles,
let alone that we skipped over a lot of the details with the subjects that we did cover. But like I said, let me know if you want me to cover any more of this in another video covering any one of those specific topics. But till next time, train safe and stay SwordSavvy.
I gotta remember. Oh, stop the camera. Simplifying heraldry for your vision. I gotta go find a document and memorize things. What fell down? Perez wavy, and Perez just because it'll be funny to have his face like right there.
I hope Shan takes this well.
It can get complicated really easily. I need a whole big video. I need a whole field kind of video. So there's the Greek cross, the Maltese cross, the cross pole, cross. Hey, I found it what fell down. My data sheet. That thing from earlier that I didn't know what it was. And I believe that's a wrap. I think that's a wrap. Oh, that's it. I'm done. Except for the editing and the special effects and the running of the tags and then all the other stuff I'm gonna do. But the filming, it's done. Bye. Oh, it didn't even turn off.